what is going on. Let me adjust the screen real quick. Thank you for coming in. Episode 104. 104 in a row. Let's get the right script up there. There we go. Bootleg Toyco, first one in the house tonight. What is up, my dude? That new piece you are working on is phenomenal. I will just say that. Bliss Receptor, Lynn's Folklore. Going to look at some folklore pieces tonight. Pickman's Vinyls. What's up, dude? Mr. Ordinary got a sicky piece from you. We're going to take a look at tonight. Zimit Co. I know, man. I love this chain. I can't not wear it. You know what I mean? It's so cool. So tonight we got Yo-Yo Dyne is in the house. Fresh new work from Cool Cat Toys. That damn JDO. Ordinary Toys, Yuckamuck, Jimmy Folklore. We got a giveaway by Sir Collect a Lot. Just a couple news and notes. Thank you, everybody who snagged one of those, one of the Hurt Toys piece out of the Toys Alive shop for the initial Toys Alive first ever drop. Thank you for picking up one of those. Those all went out, and I think everybody will have theirs by Saturday, I want to say. And, you know, I probably didn't say this before, but I should probably say it. When there's a drop in the store, here's a little hint for you. This is just going to be a little hint. Yeah, Captain Kill Devil. That's what I'm talking about. When I do a drop in the store for the month, the initial drop is at the beginning of the month. Now, that's not to say that that artist, said artist, will not have another drop in the store. So during that month, so there's the initial drop at the beginning of the month. Technically, that artist has the whole month to release stuff. Not the same stuff, but different stuff. Kind of the same stuff, but definitely not the same stuff. So just saying, keep an eye out. End of the month, there could be something else from Hurt Toys. And when I say could be, I mean, hell yes, there will be. All right. So that is it for the intro, I think. Giveaway. I don't know what happened with the giveaway. We only got about a dozen people clicking in the giveaway this week. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if I didn't advertise that right or what happened there, but the giveaway's free. 100% free to whoever wins. Wednesday, you just got to jump in there. Do me a favor. Read the question. We got some responses this week that have nothing to do with what's with the question in the giveaway. So I'm not sure what the deal is there, but super easy. Spread the word. Free stuff on Wednesdays. Come and get it. Right now we are bringing in Yo-Yo Dyne Toys. He is in the waiting room and ready to go. Yeah, Ordinary dude, you're solid, man. It's weird, man. I think every week there's probably at least a couple new people who jump into that giveaway, and the people, there's some new people in there, obviously, but anyways, free stuff on Wednesday. Spread the word. All right, we're gonna go ahead and bring in Yo-Yo Dyne Toy Division. 1 hour is not long enough to speak to this gentleman with the long list of stuff that he has going on. It really is incredible when you really start digging down to everything that he's involved in. He's in the waiting room, ready to go. You ready, my man? There we go. Scott with a K coming to the stage.
Hey.
What's up, dude?
Not much. Just hanging out in, I call it the Yo-Yo Cave, I guess. It's my studio, my office, and my bedroom.
And where is that? What part of the world are you in?
So I kind of live part-time in Toronto.
Okay.
That's where I teach. But my like actual home base is in London, Ontario, which is about 2.5 hours away from there by car. Um, I share a house with some like old friends, and it's a wonderful place to be. Um, and yeah, so this is my both my collection, my workshop, my office, my studio space. I have a studio in Toronto also with my partner that I split. So when I'm there, I have space to work. But this is kind of where I am right now before I start commuting to teach for the summer next week. Um, yeah.
Nice. And what is it that you teach?
Well, I'm a contract teacher while I finish my PhD. So
Hmm,
basically, whatever I can get that's sort of like within my wheelhouse, which is like a little bit of art history, media studies. So I'm teaching the history of new media art, which is basically the history of
wow,
like digital and computational art.
sure.
Uh, and I also teach intro to game studies, like video game studies.
Right.
And in the past, I've actually taught video game design as well, narrative design, systems and UX design, and a bunch of that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah,
So the gosh, man, you beat me to it as far as the video game stuff.
yeah,
Uh, just from what I know, man, I know that there was you had done a trip down to Mexico. Gosh, what was that, man? Let me look at my notes so I don't look like I'm sort of. First of all, man, Yo-Yo Dyne jet propulsion systems. There's a deep cut for you,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Yo-yo down propulsion systems. Yeah, that's where the name came from. I'm a huge Buckaroo Banzai fan, and I always felt like when I was a kid, I was robbed of not getting those action figures. And one of the things about like fan culture and sort of fan art and folk art, which is kind of what we do, is
Mm,
that in fan culture, we kind of make the things and do the things that we want to see,
yeah,
right? That were never made. That kind of unrealized desire of a thing that we love. And I had grand ambitions of doing a whole line of Buckaroo Banzai toys, including vehicles and playsets. And I have sketches, but I never did anything else with them. But I just like the name. It was like kind of a rebrand for me when I started making toys. So yeah, that's where it came from.
nice. Buckaroo Banzai, man. I know the cast in that film is just freaking amazing, man. When was that made? That's got to be like what, mid '80s, early to mid
84.
'80s. '84.
I
Okay,
think
so
it's 84. Yeah. Which is an incredible year for movies. Like that's the year Ghostbusters comes out, and
hmm,
like yeah, 84 is like a seminal like year for me in film. But like yeah, and like Peter Weller, Christopher Lloyd, Clancy Brown, Jeff Goldblum, like Ellen Burstyn, just doing the most ridiculous sci-fi adventure film. Like it's just such fun and good satire. I think that movie, and yeah, it really spoke to me. I actually the first time I saw it was on a TV at a hotel room in Orlando when we were on a family trip to Disney World. And yeah, and it just like obviously stuck in my craw, right? Like
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Um, so again, man, from what I know, I mean, it sounds like we'll just rewind all the way back, man. Like getting into toys, and
yeah, sure,
I think your story is similar to a lot of people that I've heard, um, where just kind of like painting up miniatures, right? Like I
yeah,
think anybody that follows your work can tell, the fine line work that you do as far as painting goes. So that goes all the way back to when you were a kid and painting. It was metal kind of military figures from your grandfather, if I remember correctly.
yeah, he was. I learned like making from my grandfather in his workshop in the basement of his house. And he would do things for me like grab a piece of plywood, throw it on the table saw, and make a brick wall that I could like run my GI Joe tanks through and shit.
Mm,
And then eventually, like I would help him make stuff, and that often like he cast in white metal using like vulcanized rubber molds, and then would paint them, and I would help by like getting to pour the metal and stuff. And he passed away when I was 17,
Mm.
but my father held on to all of that stuff and years ago gave it all to me. So I have all of the original molds that my grandfather made. I have model kits that he never finished. I have like literally in a little drawer under my monitor, like that's a horse that my grandfather cast. Um, like
Are those better?
it's white metal. I think it's tin and pewter. I don't know the exact composition of the alloy, but like here's an arm from a marching band with a guy with a cymbal. Like I have all of the pieces that of all of his unfinished work, like miscast that I could melt down again. And then someday I want to do an exhibition where I finish his model kits.
Mm.
Also, anything that was like unfinished work of his, and then showed alongside my work now, as like a tribute to him. I even have like old hobby magazines that he had, and like notes that he took and sketches that he made. The tools that I use for the minimal sculpting that I do in my kit bashes, they're
Yeah.
his they're his tools.
Oh wow.
So I
Cool.
have this like direct connection to him every time I make, which is like, obviously has a lot of deep meaning for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So I learned it like very early on how to do a lot of this stuff. And then in my teenage years, got into like tabletop role playing games and painted my own miniatures and stuff. And then eventually did some custom toy stuff in the 90s and early 2000s, not very much, and then just kind of put it
Yeah.
all down. Um, yeah.
And is that when you kind of went full speed into? Now I know there was a trip down to Mexico for uh, video games, man, and that's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Anybody who hasn't heard your Toys on Tap interview, man, that's dude, you were way brilliant, and I think episode 9. I remember, and it's so it's a couple years old, but that's a great listen if anybody has that. You also have a 6-part. There's actually a link to the 6-part series of bootleg toys for Toys on Tap down in the scroller there. But um, kind of going back to that video games, man. I know that you had talked about the video games and kind of setting that up, and it was something that I never even realized, I guess, was a thing where you have kind of this whole um, kind of world of bootlegs, I'll say, that are all falling under this bootleg umbrella, which I think when you look at it from the outside, man, I think I completely agree with you. I think if we start trying to separate these things too much, you're just going to go crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really under the umbrella of bootleg stuff. Um, Bootleg video games was the Mexico thing. What kind of video games were you into, or how did, I mean, traveling down to Mexico for 2 weeks, how did that come about as far as video games go?
Well, it's a long story, but I was living in Winnipeg, and I was the manager of the media services department for one of the universities there.
Hmm.
And I used to work as a VJ, doing live video mixing for like raves and DJs and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then I got invited to curate a show, and I did a video game exhibition, and then that sort of kicked off a whole process where I actually went back to school um, to do my master's degree in video game studies, where um, I wrote my master's thesis on the history of homebrew games, which are basically like homemade bootleg games, and piracy on the Sega Dreamcast.
Oh man, great,
Uh,
dude.
yeah, like, and the work that fans have made for that thing are incredible. And then, so that kind of kicked off this larger thing with curating more video game like art shows, like interactive shows. I used to throw chip music shows as well, and sort of dabbled in chip music as well, but mostly worked as a VJ and had other people come in and play music. And then and I was doing some work with some galleries in Toronto, and then they said, "Hey, we have 5 days free next year in this one slot. Why don't you do something big?" And then I got a bunch of people together, a bunch of other artists and curators that I knew, and we started a digital art festival called Vector, which is still going on. I haven't been involved in the last 6 years, but I worked on it for 5 years, and that kind of I developed a profile as a new media and video game curator. I moved to Montreal to do my PhD. And then my relationship with Mexico started in 2015 when I got invited to co-curate an exhibition at an event called Transidio, which is the Mexican New Media Art Biennial, so the Biennale, like big profile festival. And that's when I discovered the bootleg video game culture there, and lucha libre culture and bootleg toy culture, and the Museo del Juguete Antiguo Mexicano, the Mexican antique toy museum, which sort of puts licensed work and bootleg toys kind of in the same displays. Like they don't distinguish them. And it really inspired me. And then the next year I went back to teach a game making course to an indie game making class to first time game makers. It was like an incubator. I was there for 3 weeks. I met the owner of the toy museum and said, I want to do a bootleg video game exhibition with you. I will get the funding and pay the artists. I just want to do it here. And so everything from like old bootleg Famicom games to like mod chips, PS1s, PS3s, Xboxes. And then each artist, it was called La Galleria Fantasma, the Ghost Arcade. And each artist made a custom art arcade cabinet for a game that we bought with like bootleg game and hardware that we bought in the gamer plazas in downtown Mexico City. And each artist built a cabinet, and I was there to support them and help build and that stuff. And I built a cabinet myself when I was there, called the Pepsi Man can, which was a mannequin in a rain barrel that looked like a giant Pepsi can with a TV for a face, and then it played a bootleg of the Pepsi Man video game, that like weird video. And that, so since 2015, I've had this kind of like developing relationship. And then, last time I had gone before COVID was 2018, and then just this past February. Originally, the trip was supposed to be a gift from my father when I finished a draft of my dissertation, but I got really sick in the fall and couldn't get that far. And he was like, well, when you finish that draft, we'll go. And I'm like, or you can acknowledge that health-wise, I've had a really rough fucking 6 months and we should just go.
Yeah.
And he went, okay, let's go. So, he was really generous and he covered the trip. And then I got to go back and, sort of like go to some old haunts, discover some new things, see old friends. Got to hang out with Meg Toys and Epoxy Crusader. They were super generous with their time.
Nice.
Really good hangs. And I literally packed an empty suitcase so that I could come home with a suitcase full of toys.
Oh yeah.
The game thing that you said, and like, we do bootleg toys, but there's bootleg games, there's homebrew games, it's all sort of a larger fabric of like fan art, which is kind of like folk art of the 21st century, right?
Yeah.
And bootlegs for me are critically important because copyright is nothing if not a mode of prohibition. You pay money to access said thing, right? And it's quote authenticity or whatever. Right. And all around the world, because copyright is legislation isn't international, sort of developing countries and all of this kind of stuff just take that and then make their own stuff. So for me, bootleg culture is actually about granting access, right? A bootleg Superman toy from Mexico granted some young Mexican kid who couldn't afford a licensed toy in Mexico, like a Superman toy. And that's their version of Superman. So it's very regional too, I think, which is also really cool, right? You have you have Jacob who does the stuff about the Polish bootlegs, and then there's Mexican bootlegs, right? Brazil, Argentina, like it's all very regional.
Yeah.
And it fascinates me. Like I'm deep. I go deep on this shit.
Dude, yeah, it is, man. And there was a comment about your zine plasticity. There's also a link to that. That's a free download in your link tree on Instagram. So
I do have print copies available if people prefer and want to buy a print copy from me.
Nice.
You just have to DM me. I actually have to do another printing of them. That's why it's just a digital thing right now. But anyway, sorry, continue.
Oh no, all good, man. That's like a 40-something page zine.
Mhm.
And man, it is so good in so many ways because I don't want to say it encompasses everything, but it gets a lot of your thoughts, about toys and then kind of the bootleg community in general. Um, so kind of bring us up to speed, man. So that was probably, you said early 2000, 2015. Maybe we'll jump ahead to like 2020, right? So
Yeah,
COVID around, everybody just kind of hunkers down and is kind of doing their thing.
yeah,
Um, and you're still teaching the whole time?
yeah. I started doing like, yeah, I was teaching the whole time. For me, I kind of started making customs in like resin casting in like 2017, 2018. Started out mostly with customs and then did that. But by the time COVID came, yeah, I was living alone in a one-bedroom apartment in Montreal,
Mm,
teaching online because everything just went boom and
yeah,
everything went online.
yeah.
And so yeah, I was on leave from my PhD at the time for health reasons, and all I did was teach and make toys for like years there. I was,
Well, it's not all that bad.
yeah, no, it was great. Yeah, lived, yeah, weird, lonely guy with a apartment full of toys and four cats, hanging out. But yeah, so I was teaching the whole time online, so it was pretty good. Like I was, I think one of the fortunate people that actually got to still um, sort of have a very stable and like decent income during that time. And in fact, actually, I was living in Montreal, but I started teaching for online for universities in Toronto, and that's what led me moving back
Hmm,
after in 2022 to start teaching in person. Um,
gotcha.
2020, yeah, 2022, yeah, yeah,
So, kind of going back to Mexico, man. I know that you had brought back on one of your first trips. You had brought back a bunch of luchadors,
yes,
uh, and just from watching your recent video that you had, God, dude, there's so many luchadors in there. It's freaking awesome. But just wrestling in general. I mean, I know you just did the wrestling show, but one of the pieces that I bought from you at Somebody Required 2 years ago. The only thing that I don't have in front of me, and I'm kicking myself for it, is the box because the box is freaking rad as well.
mm.
But this guy right here, I mean, come
Oh
on,
yeah, Tetsujin Tiger 7. Yeah. I think I do actually have a box.
so good, dude. I mean,
Pardon my shabby sweat shorts that I'm wearing. It's like a Zoom call where I shouldn't stand up.
I'm not wearing anything, so I'm not going to stand
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, here's the box.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, man.
Yeah. And yeah, so Popey World Heroes is a Japanese action figure line that covered all the tokusatsu characters, like the Japanese version of Power Rangers before they were Power Rangers.
Mm,
You know, Common Rider or Masked Rider, all that kind of stuff. And Think Outside the Toy Box years ago made a tribute Popey World Heroes box of the Japanese Spider-Man, the
yeah.
live action Japanese Spider-Man, um, that I have. And there were 25 toys in the original line, and so he made his Spider-Man number 26. And they never did a Tetsujin Tiger 7 figure, so I was like, I'm going to do a tribute, and then so that's why mine's number 27.
Oh man.
So
See,
I like even followed Justin's like numbering so that like mine sort of fits in line
yeah.
with his and the rest of the line. Um, yeah, I was just a really big fan of that show and how ridiculous it was, and I always wanted to make a toy of it. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to make a toy of it that way, like I'm going to follow, do the package design work as well. Oh, thanks, Pikmin. Yeah, I think that like playing around with package design is something that I've really enjoyed. Like the the monster cereal Star Wars mashups I did that were full size cereal boxes that were all made by like printed and then cut and folded by hand. These are also all printed and cut and folded by hand. The handmade quality of the stuff is really important to me. Like I want it to feel handmade, you know. But yeah, I really that figure was a lot of fun to make. Sort of,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's sick, man. It's the detail on it, and the box, dude. I mean, Pikmin said that that's what made him want to step up his box game, and I agree, dude. I'm kicking myself because I don't have it in front of me. Here's one other one that I'm going to show, dude, and you tell me who's responsible for what because I'm not sure.
Okay.
This was another one from Assembly Required last year. This is the box here.
The buns of Durasteel, which
Yeah.
is actually what they call steel in the Star Wars universe. Yeah, the Princess Leia aerobics figure. And then if you like all of the stuff all the way down to the UPC barcode that I put on it are all super deep nerdy Star Wars references.
Oh man, that's Jimmy folklore heaven right there, man.
That is the sorry, old man pulling my glasses down, but that number is actually the number of the trash compactor that the door for the trash compactor when they're like, open the seal on track, whatever, blah blah blah. Yeah, like I went all the way super deep with it. So
Yeah.
chicken
That's
burger, yeah, and then the inside is the VHS tape, and the bubble opens so that you can pop the figure out. So Chicken Burger Disco made that figure, and he sent me one, and I was like, dude, this is the best. Like, you have to do a release of this. I love this toy so much. And he was like, no, nobody will want it. I don't know. And I was like, you're wrong. I think it's a great idea. And I said, give me an hour. And then I did the cover of the VHS tape of the box and
that's
sent
so
like a rough draft of it and sent it back to him. Um, and and he was like, yeah, all right, let's do it. So he sent me 5 and the mold. So I think I have 2 left that I actually have to find and redo the boxes because they got smooshed. But eventually I will drop those in the future, I think.
that's
Or maybe, yeah, or maybe that will be the piece that I send to Mint on Card in Australia.
oh, there you go.
Yeah,
The paint on this though, man. I mean, your paint work is
that's Dylan's paint work on that
oh,
one. Yeah,
crazy good.
he's really good as well. Yeah, his paint work is excellent.
Mm, really good.
Yeah.
You had made a there was a part of the Toys on Tap interview where you were talking about kind of, and we touched on it a little bit already, kind of like this large umbrella of bootleg stuff. Now, me coming into the scene probably around 2020 plus, I do like the way that you say the word scene because there's some people who look down on that word for some reason. I don't know why that has any sort of negative connotation. To me, it's just another word for community,
Yeah.
uh, in a way, right? But
Yeah.
You
I think
said, yeah, go ahead.
there's like an academic reason for that as well. Like there's fields, worlds, and scenes. It's like a sort of a social theory of the construction of art communities. And
Yeah,
scenes are kind of the informal ones, right? They're like a field is like a professional institutional framework. That's not us.
right.
That's decidedly not us. Right? And so I think scene is a fine word to use. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And let's get into so Mike, where I was going with that was, coming into the scene in 2020, I first came in and I didn't really understand any of the terms that were being used. Indie toys. I mean, you kind of break that down and you say, okay, independent toy maker, someone who's not, that doesn't have is connected to a company that's making stuff.
Yeah.
And then you start using the word bootleg. And some people say well, back then when people used to use, a lot of hashtags, bootleg toys, and it seems like those ones have a lot of following. On the flip side of that coin, you hear people saying, it's not a bootleg. This is a bootleg. And they'll typically show something like the pieces that you're picking up in Mexico. You had
Yeah.
a really good definition of how big the umbrella is and how things like kit bashing And you had a great breakdown on the actual definition and origin story of the word kit bashing. Um, but to you, what's the difference between indie toy and bootleg? Are they interchangeable?
I look, yeah, I think about that, and sometimes one of the problems with definitions
Yeah,
is that the more specific you get, the more you're excluding from your definition, right?
100%.
You're slicing stuff out, and then you're building a smaller framework to talk about it.
Sure.
I think indie toy can encompass everything in the designer toy, all the way to the art toy to the bootleg toy. I think we can look at that as like a big umbrella. And then you have, you have your designer vinyl and your resin bootlegs, or, artist made action figure is also the term that sort of, I think Dove was the one who started using that term, which also I like. I don't, I mean, indie toys, if you look at any aspect of the indie toy space, they are appropriating intellectual property in the same way that any bootleg toy maker is, right? Like
Yeah,
I have, is it Kozik or no? Ron English made Mickey Zilla, which is a Godzilla and with vinyl with a Mickey Mouse head, for example.
right.
The only difference between that and sort of the resin toy makers is the material that it's made and where it is made, which is generally offshore. Um,
Sure.
Although there are now a bunch of people who are doing have soft vinyl studios in North America. So, in Mexico as well, like Mexican soft vinyl as well. So for me, I don't think that there's any need to like police language around it. I think that all the definitions convey similar ideas. What's an indie toy maker? Someone who, if you think about indie, right? For me, you can also think about amateur culture. And I don't mean amateurs in the pejorative sense. I mean people who are usually doing this because they're driven by the passion for the thing over the profit for the thing. And everybody has different opinions about whether they want to like grow their business and make it full time versus a side hustle, all that entrepreneurial kind of stuff, and that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with these definitions of indie and amateur because that is the primary basis of the ethos that I live by. Like, I
Sure.
started making zines when I was 17 years old. Like, I've always been embedded in indie culture because I feel like it's the most interesting culture rather than like the larger sort of monoculture retail space and stuff, right? Like, so I don't really tend to like, I don't, even though I'm, like writing my PhD and all of this stuff about this stuff, I try not to get bogged down in terms, and I'm not interested in like being so specific because I think ambiguity is probably a better place to let it sit. It's like, well, it's kind of this and it's kind of this, but it's all of, because there's so many things that go into this in
Yeah,
terms of what the action figure is as a medium, right? Like, is the action figure the object, or is the entire medium also the object and its packaging, right? Because there's, especially in the bootleg community, because of the meta discourse that happens between the figure and the ground, like literally in that painting sense, it's a figure on the ground, right? On the backer. So I think that like letting the language just sort of linger, and those things will be defined by people over time, but they rarely do we ever like kind of put a finger on a movement in its moment, right? It's always historical. Like this, the books that will be written about this community and the things that are happening now will be discovered by people 5-10 years from now, and they'll be writing about them as well. And it just like, you know designer vinyl and its emergence in the 90s to like late 90s to now, like that's the work that I'm doing, is sort of like trying to map the territory, and say these are the cultural currents that led us to the current moment that we see. But I'm not qualified to write about the current moment that we see because I'm in it, right? Or I am, but I have to like sort of frame some of that off a little bit.
sure.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a rambly answer, but
No, it's great, and I think stuff that just kind of being around for a couple years now, it's stuff that I don't think really. I think it's stuff that a lot of people wonder about,
yeah,
especially if let's say that wave that came in 2020, um, and just isn't really familiar. And it's not something that I hear people really talk about. You come into the scene and you kind of hear that saying some things or doing some things are a little bit taboo, and you don't know why. You just kind of roll with it and say, yeah, okay, whatever. And you don't get a lot of just like what you did. You don't get a lot of definitions and explanation, but it's the definitions and explanation um, to me that I find extremely interesting on why things are, why we like the things that we do.
yeah,
Uh, I know that you know, and I don't know how you still feel about this, but Super Seven as I don't want to say evil as people make it out to be, but you can. It kind of goes back to exactly what you were saying, man. They're making stuff that we wish was made when we were kids,
hmm
and it's not made anymore, man. Would you put those guys in? I mean, even they are selling on a commercial level somewhat.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and they're dealing with large scale corporate licenses. I mean, that's what they do now, right? Like they have their own stuff, like their own IPs, which are like totally goofy and awesome.
yeah.
Uh, so coming from game studies and sort of, sorry, that maybe that was
Oh, that was me.
okay. I thought it was feedback for a second. So coming from like the academic world of game studies and then pivoting to toys, they're all objects that we play with, so there's commonality there. But the rise of indie video games looks very similar. Small teams, independent studios that are like 4 or 5 people, sometimes one person. There's art games and game art and all these kind of like that muddy definitional water. But then there's kind of lowercase I indie and then uppercase I indie, like big indie. And I think that Super 7 for me, I see the hate that people like bring on them, and I'm like, holy fuck, like where are your priorities, first of all? Like, I don't get that side of the cult, that like toxic nonsense and complaining. Like, why aren't you? This is just another colorway. Meh. It's like,
Yeah.
just don't buy it. Just don't buy it. Relax, guys.
Or buy it and relax because they're freaking. I mean, like you said, dude,
They're awesome. Like,
they're great. And
look,
how many people are kit bashing Super 7 reaction figures right now, dude? There's it's countless. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
You know,
dude,
like
like,
even if you're using that as a base and then sculpting on top,
and
still, you know what I mean?
where else would you get Minya from All Monsters Attack, my favorite
Hmm.
Godzilla movie, which is generally regarded as the worst one, but it has a special place in my heart. Like they released this last year, and I got super fucking excited. Right? Like,
Yeah.
so Super Seven starts as a magazine, is a fan magazine about Japanese vinyl toys. Right? I have like the entire archive of. Yeah. What?
Nobody here.
Yeah.
Nobody
Like, like, you know, like, yeah, like so much of what, and they know it too. They know it. I know Brian knows it. Like,
here.
and I think it's great that they're like, oh, here's some more fodder for whatever. Like that all-seeing ooze figure that I have is just that black oil slick guy from Star Trek: The Next Generation, from the first season that killed Tasha Yar, and I just drilled a hole in his head, stuck a Mardi Gras bead in it, gave him an eyeball, and just started casting and painting him in different colors. Like, but I think Super Seven has, even though they're, and all of the designer vinyl companies are doing work either that is licensed, like Mondo, right? They're doing Godzilla stuff, and they're I would say a bigger indie company. Um, but everybody, like the license Kid Robot,
Yeah.
when Kid Robot was bought by NECA, like all of that license stuff started in, because ultimately what I think happened with that designer vinyl market in that moment is that it was clear that independent designers alone could not float a company, and they needed to grow and use that other stuff to finance the more Indian designer stuff, right? From that like first generation of like American design, like designers working on Dunnies and Moneys and all that kind of stuff. So I think they're indie. I think their spirit is there. I mean, what's their ethos is like, we grew up on punk rock and monster movies and whatever, and we're just making the shit that we didn't get to see when we were that age. And
That's great.
What the rest of us are doing too.
It really is, man. And I think they really hit and I think it's freaking obvious to everyone now. I mean, they started off as a magazine, right? But then they start making figures and stuff, and it's all the stuff that, just like you said, man, the stuff that we never had. And God, dude, I think it hits on so many levels, but the nostalgia of it is just, you know what I mean? Like you look at the majority of the movies that they do, lots of 80s and 90s movies and stuff, and it's just, it's great, man. Lots of pop culture stuff. But I think I think the nostalgia is where it's at, and not just in figures, but in the gear that they have. At the counter now at the store, you can buy old wax packs of like original wax packs and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of live in the age of the nostalgia industrial complex, right? Like that's basically all media to a certain extent.
Right.
The biggest brands in the world are the brands that like emerged when I was a kid. When all the cusp Gen Xers die, there is going to be a giant hole in culture and a whole lot of plastic waste that nobody knows what the fuck to do with.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we kind of live in a, like, what did I do last weekend? My girlfriend and I went to go see a screening of Star Wars at a local indie cinema for May the 4th.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Dude, what other movie? God dang it, man. There was another movie that was just in the theater, and I missed it because it was on a freaking Thursday. I don't know if anybody else had that in their area, but it was the last week or the week before, there was a movie. God dang it, it'll come to me on what it was, but there was something that came out in the theater just for a day.
Dawn of the Dead?
No.
Because Dawn of the Dead is having like everything is anniversaries, right? Like this year is the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace, right? Someone else, where was I? Yeah, Dawn of the Dead. Like everything is sort of like commemorated and memorialized to sell you new versions of things all the time. Like that is new versions of the same things. Like that is, that kind of derivative culture is where we live. It's where we live. Like all the Marvel, whatever, like Marvel, Star Wars, whatever, it's all harkening back to like this larger history of all of these media.
Yeah.
Right? Superman, another Superman movie coming next year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man, just being around it for so long, dude. You know what? I'm not even going to ask you that. I'm going to ask you that after this.
Right.
If you guys have seen Yo-Yo Dyne's Mexico video, it goes back, I think, right about 8 or 9 weeks right now.
Something like that. It was February. It was like mid-February, late
mid-February. There's an hour-long video on his page where he's just unboxing piece after piece after piece, package after package, playset after playset, model after model, all from Mexico.
Yeah.
They're freaking wild, man. I did save a little excerpt from that because I saw these figures and I was like, son of a bitch, man. Those are the ones that I want right there. It's the Thundercats, the 5.5 style.
The Mumra Lino.
Oh, dude, they're so good, man. And they have that packaging. I don't know if anybody messes with Karma DePero, but I've got a couple pieces from him, and they always come in this style packaging here.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, man, I'm going to switch over to that video real quick and share it and just kind of share a couple minutes of this clip.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Here we go.
Iconic Mexican bootleg Thundercats. There's Lino and Mumra in green. There's Lino and Mumra in blue. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Here is He-Man and Skeletor. Here, here's the best. Is it Quicksilver? Is that his name from Silverhawks?
Love that one.
Just like he's very happy.
The face on that is amazing.
He got a
Like
bunch
the
of
Joker.
those. Again, bought a big bag of these stuff. So if anybody's interested, hit me up. I've got a ton of them that I'm going to sell. Here's a He-Man with the little
Oh my god,
Castle Grayskull
dude.
display.
What?
I really love those Grayskulls. This is a different one than I already have, actually. It's a different sculpt, which is really surprising. I didn't know there was more than one sculpt of this, but it's a very different sculpt than the one that I already have. And I love this one because it looks blood splattered. Like the battle for Castle Grayskull outside just like became a bloodbath.
It comes with the habit stack, dude, just randomly, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, usually because they're thrown in, it's a sprue that has the power sword and the havoc staff on the sprue together.
Right.
The last two things I'm going to go through, the last two sets of stuff I'm going to go through once I'm finished with all these things that I bought on the street was the work from Meg Toys that I got at his workshop when I went to visit, and a trade that I did with Epoxy Crusader. So here is El Chapulín Colorado, the famous Mexican superhero comedian with his little hammer and his little ears. Again, Mercado Sonora seems to be the place where to get all these toys these days. Here are some Super Luchas, some big blow molded Lucha Libres. I got this one that looks sort of like El Santo. Forgive me, I do not know which mask this is. But I really love these. And I believe it or not, with all of this stuff, I feel like I actually did show some restraint because I came very close to actually buying a bunch of extra
This is showing some restraint. An
Oh
hour
my
long.
I'm not even done yet.
Like, I literally
Here's a little King Kong that I got at a vendor in a place called Plaza Pica Shop, which is one of the otaku culture sort of like gamer plazas with anime and magic cards. And
yeah, it was pretty funny.
My friends Patty and Anna gifted me this bootleg Sword of Omens.
Awesome.
Which I'm going to print a sticker or a water slide decal and put on there. Super cute. These normally come with a little plastic like glove of Lion-O's gauntlet that you could put on, but I mean, obviously it's made for kids, so it wouldn't fit me, but I did get one of those. Okay. Close to getting to the sort of some of the last stuff. Another Quicksilver. Goes in the bag.
I do have spares of these.
Another He-Man and Skeletor.
So,
dude.
Yeah.
In the bag. It should be said that when my father invited me on this trip, I planned, like I said, I planned very, very deliberately to come home with a suitcase full of toys. Both for research, but also, like I said, Mexican toys
man.
They're probably my favorite out of everything. Like I've kind of tried to stop collecting sort of contemporary retail stuff, and I'm aiming my collection.
Anyway, yeah. Sometimes I wish that Customs had actually cracked open that suitcase.
Oh my god, they would have been like,
it would have been like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, it would have been like, no, it's all for me. I'm not buying stuff to resell, I swear. But
they open it up and they're like, nerd, and then close it back up.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but I do actually have a couple of spare sets of stuff. I can send you some photos if you're interested.
Oh, absolutely, man. So there was at one point where Carmen DePero actually got his shop broken into in Mexico, and a lot of his packages got robbed. And one of them was mine, and I had a couple of those sets of the He-Man Skeletor and a couple other things, and they're just, those are just done deals now. So when I saw that video and I saw that you had extras, I'm like, all right, make a note to hit up Scott for sure.
Yeah. All that stuff never even made it out except for the blow molded He-Man faker right there. Yeah. Everything else is basically still in a box in my closet because I just don't have room to display it all. I have a few like sort of choice Mexican things that I got on the trip, like nearby, like this crazy like sort of 4.5-inch bebop.
Nice.
And then one of my favorites, of all time is this Snarf.
Oh God, dude, that's a great one. I saw that picture with the three of them in there.
Yeah, so good. But I have a bunch of stuff from Carmen DePero too, because when I wanted to get like my Mexican toy fix, like there's limited options, right?
Yeah,
and I used him. But I have some Mexican Cause vinyl from him and a bunch, just a ton of other stuff. Now I'm knocking toys over.
Man, so
yeah.
It seems like, well, it doesn't seem like, I mean, you are obviously not just a surface collector or a surface anything really when it comes to toys, man. I mean, you can tell the roots go deep. You've studied these things. You're familiar with different makers, different styles. From what you have seen, kind of what's your take on where this is going, man? I mean, I think you've probably been around long enough to kind of seen waves come in and out. And that's something, I think for some of us who have only been around for, 4 years or so, it's kind of hard to gauge what we stumbled into, man. And I don't know. I always feel like, at the company I work for, we always like to say when times are good, we have some upward pressure, right? So it feels to me, and I've talked to several other people where it does feel like there's some upward pressure, but I don't know what to gauge that against,
I think that I mean, I can't prognosticate anything except to say that indie culture always sort of exists and thrives on its own, even when there's no eyes on it. Right?
Sure.
So like any sort of indie community, there are ebbs and flows. I think that, like COVID certainly saw the scene like kind of undergo some explosive growth, and then I think afterwards there was a little bit of contraction, and then it is sort of another sort of period of explosive growth, like not long after that. But I think that like I would imagine that no matter what happens, there's going to be people who are making this stuff, right? Like the project now, I think, as some of us are sort of getting older and are in middle age, is I think part of the project should be to try to elicit that passion in the younger generations. Right? I mean, that's kind of what I view my job as a university instructor as, right? Like when I was in my undergrad in university, like my professors instilled passions in me that I took with me, and I feel like I just kind of want to pay that forward and encourage and support that next generation as well. And I think that, will it grow much bigger? I mean, one of the questions becomes, like so many other indie communities, one of the things that we do is we're just circulating capital among ourselves. Right? Show me a toy maker who's not also invested in collecting and sort of owning work by other artists in the community. I have a huge collection of stuff from the community. Most of the carded stuff is actually flat packed in some like very well packed boxes, like very gingerly right now, because I just don't have the space to display it right now. But I think that that's true. I think like any other community I've been involved with, whether it's been zines or chip music or video games or any of those, like the people who are supporting the work are also the people who are making the work. And that's one of the reasons why I love these communities so much. Because ultimately we're expressing ourselves and sharing these things with one another. And that's always, I think, that's where the sustainability is, right? And that support and that mutual support and passion. I don't know if you noticed, there was a cat tail that just poked in the window.
Kyle had a comment there. This is my thoughts too. We need to teach them youngins. And I think I'll go back to earlier on in the conversation where you kind of were talking about kind of the crux of bootlegs, and if you think about it, kind of maybe how that started. And absolutely, one of the ways would be if you did not have the money or the means to get these toys, you end up making your own, either by kit bashing them or figuring out a way to make your own. Lots of times done by kids, lots of times by kids playing with action figures and whatnot. Now, my two kids they're older now. They're almost 20 and 17.
Yeah.
So we're definitely out of the action figure phase. Is it discouraging at all?
I'm 49 and I am not nearly out of the action figure.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. But you being a teacher would probably know very well as far as young adults go, and maybe even maybe students that you had conversations with of what they were into when they were kids. Is it frustrating at all to kind of see that time from when we were kids where it's like go outside and play, find something to do, and now we have the introduction of phones and tablets and iPads and everything else? Do you think we're losing some of that a little bit as far as the creativity goes when it comes to action figures and kit bashing and trying to do your own thing?
I think that generally, I mean, I think it's pretty well established that the science is in that says that, the age that we're living in has seen the diminishment of youth in the way that we previously understood it. Jonathan Haidt just wrote that book. He's a sociologist, The Anxious Generation. He's been doing all the podcast rounds. And he talks about this very explicitly. Sociologist, social scientist did this work. I think one of the things that's happened in the shift is that younger generations, sort of like post-millennial generations, like Retro Neon says, I think kids in general struggle with toys after the age of about 4 or 5 now because of digital, like video games and interactive technologies and digital culture and stuff. Like the play is still embedded there. It's just a different it's a different mode of play, right?
Right.
It's not the same kind of like social play. It's more isolated, right? I can tell you that as a university professor, my students, and I think it's part COVID as well, like seem more anxious and also more checked out and don't pay attention as well as prior to COVID. I think that's so one of the things I wonder about, which is why I said that thing about cusp Gen Xers, when they all die, we're just going to have mountains of plastic that nobody knows what to do with, is because of the shift in material culture and that material becoming digital and intangible, right? There's still materiality to digital. That's a larger sort of conversation, but that shift, right? So imagine like when the NFT thing exploded and everybody was like, why would you want a digital collectible? This is nonsense, et cetera, et cetera. Look at the people who's like average, the mean age of the people who were collecting those. Those were also people who, when they were younger, were listening to MP3s and watching stuff on like digital set boxes and Netflix and YouTube. The media environment for those younger kids didn't have the same physical material, like no VHS tapes, no DVDs, right? Like, so it makes sense to me that a generation that grew up with that kind of like subscription membership economy, streaming, iTunes, iPods culture would collect digital collectibles.
Yeah.
I think that's true. That's an interesting comment too about the idea of like interactive toys, right? Like,
sure,
like Imbos and that whole Skylanders thing that also has been sort of phased out.
Yeah, God, Skylanders, man. My nephew, just tons of those things, dude. And a friend of mine recently acquired a bunch of Skylanders things because somebody gave them to him who didn't know what they were. Said, here, you can have these. I know you're into toys, right? And you start looking at those things, and then I start looking at them, and I'm just like, well, hold on here, man. This arm is pretty sick. You know what I mean? Like on this guy, and this leg is pretty sick on this guy. Maybe you can just hack these bad boys up and do something with them. But yeah, man, it's interesting how that stuff, it fades in and out so quickly. I mean, Skylanders, I have no idea what that market's like, but it seems like it was just a couple years and they were super great, and then gone.
Well, I mean, the physical figure, actually, you put it on that platform, and then you can play with that figure in the digital environment. That was the whole point. Right? So they're kind of like physical DLC. It was like a physical object that was downloadable content for the game.
Yeah, right.
And as soon as the games stop getting supported by these companies that have released these games, then you can no longer access that. Lego Dimensions, Disney Infinity, there was that phase of that where they tried to do that, and then it just kind of it went away because they don't support it anymore. So you can't even play with those things in the same way anymore.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I it's hard to say because I also feel like I talk to a lot of kids who are like really into, like, a lot of my students, because I teach at one of the big art universities, and so a lot of those kids are like kind of nerdy otaku kids these days.
Yeah.
And a lot of them actually collect physical stuff as well. And I think that's, I think that influence of Japanese material culture on this generation right now is like really well noted. They're probably collecting more of that than they are of like the North American IPs like we do.
Sure.
I think. Yeah. At least I think so. I mean, it's hard to say, but
yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out in a generation, right? Like, are we just going to be a bunch of old men like poisoning ourselves with resin fumes, and nobody in it will be doing it for us, right?
Dude, isn't it a trip to think about, man? I mean, it is. It's a trip, and then you start looking at, some of the younger artists in the scene. I know Cool Cat Toys was in here earlier, man, and that dude is just a freaking. I mean, he's so super legit, dude, and he's a younger guy.
Josh's Toybox too. Josh is
another great one. Yeah, absolutely, dude. What? Just in general, man. I know it's there's probably not a perfect answer for it, or even a correct answer for it. But where do you think that this whole thing is going? I mean, do you feel like it's growing, or do you feel like, I mean, like you said, I know that it's always going to be there, but let's say in 5 years now, man, well, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years with toys?
More of the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like one of those things. I mean, I've been really explicit about this both in the zine and on, other podcast episodes. Like, I came to toy making after a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. And it became a way for me to heal. And to be able to start processing some of that trauma and like function again. I was really in 2017, and that when I was diagnosed, I was not a functional human being. I was really on the precipice, and toys brought me back. That's why the article in the zine is called "Bootleg Saved My Life," because it's about that. For me, I think that it is how I play now, right? And I don't think like I'm not. I mean, I haven't like done a legitimate like drop in a very long time. Like, I've done a few pieces for some shows,
yeah.
But I do a lot of commission work for a few patrons that I have. But I make stuff for myself first every time. I'm not thinking about a market. Like, and I even just make stuff for myself for my own edification and for my own shelf. Like, I just made the client from Funky McClunky of his model of Werner Herzog, because like, holy fuck, I want Werner Herzog on my shelf, right? Like, yeah. So I printed and painted this.
Funky McClunky, great account if you're looking for some 3D printed.
Yeah, I love his work, man. And I have a whole shelf. There's a whole shelf in the background there of just his work that I've printed and painted. So I do it for myself first, right? It's like I think that, like, we like to call ourselves artists, but I don't think there's anything wrong with just thinking about this as a public facing hobby either, right?
Yeah.
Like, what did social media do except turn our hobbies into modes of monetization and expression, right? Like a different sort of public mode of expression. And that's how I view myself. Like, I have project ideas. I imagine in 5 years I'll be teaching and making toys and writing about stuff. I do plan on doing more issues of plasticity, but
Nice.
The writing for the dissertation is taking priority, and until that is finished, which hopefully will be by December, then my time will be wide open again. I've thought about looking for full-time teaching work, but I like contract teaching because time is the most valuable resource that we have, and I can teach a couple of courses and make a decent living and have way more time to just do what I want to do, spend the time doing the things I love doing. I've always been driven by that passion for making, like, since my grandfather, and I don't think that'll change. Like, I'm not really interested in growing a brand, some people are like very like disciplined in terms of they only post like the stuff that they're making and selling on their accounts, and that's great. But if you look at my account, it's like, this is just the thing that I am passionate about, and this is just me living my life, and I'm just sharing that. And sometimes it'll be something that someone can buy, and sometimes it'll just be something else. Kyle just said, I think we desperately need more writing in the scene. One of the things I will be doing is putting out a call for writers for future issues of Plasticity, probably in the fall.
Nice.
Because I don't want it to just be my voice, right?
Sure.
And there's some people I've talked to who are already sort of on that and stuff. But yeah, for me, it's just, I just want to spend the rest of my life doing things that fill my cup. And
sure,
I'm really lucky to have a partner who's also a collector of like really weird and awesome stuff, and we share that passion and go to toy shows and stuff together. And I just more of that. Like, maybe that says something about it, the fact that maybe I need a 5-year plan.
Not at all, man. I think what you said a little while back was really important, man. And I think I've heard that from several people where, I think the key is to not make for other people. You make for yourself. And then if people like what you make, that's the key right there. And then regardless if they buy it or not, it doesn't matter because you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you're trying to monetize that or not, the point being is that you've made it for yourself. And you thought it was cool, and even better if someone else thinks it's cool, and even way better if someone says, "Hey, I want to buy that from you."
Yeah, and I think that someday all of our endeavors will just be things that end up in a Goodwill after we die. I'm really cheery today, but and then who's to say what happens then if like a box of toys that I made that nobody likes, there is someone somewhere in the future that some alien race after our planet has been eradicated. The only thing that the beautiful thing about our craft is that no matter what happens with the climate catastrophe, our work will survive for a long time. So it's like that scene in AI when the aliens come and dig up the boy at the end of the movie. It'll be like that, but it's like a custom He-Man figure with a Burger King head. And it'll be like, what's with this culture?
That's Burgor, man. Burgor.
By the way, it is King Burgor.
Oh, there you go.
I just pulled that because I'm literally was painting this today.
That's awesome. I know After the Rhombus did a version of that too with the Mayor McCheese head.
Nice.
That's a really good one too.
Yeah, a friend of mine who owns a local comic store had a box of old beater He-Man toys that came in that he just gave me, and so I've been just going deep on making ridiculous custom motifs. That's why I made those figures for the WTF show.
Kyle, did you post about this? I thought I saw somebody post about this, or somebody had posted about a piece ending up in Goodwill, and I think they actually ended up buying it back from them. And Kyle, I don't know if that was you or not, but I did see somebody recently post a story about that. It's crazy, man. It's crazy how some of this stuff ends up. I mean, I know last week we were talking to Cave Dweller, and he pulled out a
Phantom Star Killer. Yeah.
What the fuck, right? He says he's had some dude had it in his booth for $30. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what'll happen, and my hope is within the next 5 years, one of the things that really does definitively happen is that my dissertation gets rewritten. Doesn't get rewritten because I'll do the work, but that I'll be able to rewrite it into a book. And so at least there's like something that's a document that shows this stuff. I know Dove's working on some like publication projects. I want to do more writing and publishing as well, because I think that discourse is a way that we can sustain ourselves through conversation, right? And so I want to definitely do more of that kind of work as well. My dream is to own a space, an exhibition, gallery, store, multiple media kind of event space. Like I've always wanted to have a gallery of sorts, right?
Yeah.
And the work that those spaces, the support that those spaces have given me in this community have meant the world to me. And so I would love to be able to pay that forward. Don't know if 5 years is a reasonable plan for that, depending on what my life looks like, but it's possible. Yeah, and I want to curate some more shows and do more events and stuff. Right now I just don't have the bandwidth for it.
Man, you need about 20 more hours in the day, man. I think 45 hours a day, might halfway get you there.
Yeah. I procrastinate very well. Like when I'm procrastinating on my PhD, I end up being productive in other ways, so that helps. Doesn't help me finishing my PhD, but it helps with other stuff. But yeah, I want to find a way to just sort of be able to just continue on thinking about this stuff that I'm passionate about, sharing those passions, sharing a more, I don't want to say a more, but like, I think the thing that made plasticity for me in the sort of pantheon of other sort of toy publications stand out is that, one, it was deeply personal, and two, I think it was very critical and like thoughtful and, deeply thoughtful. And that's how I engage with these things. I would like to see more of that in the world and support more of that kind of work. As well.
Well, I'm excited, man, that's only volume 1. If there's more volumes of that, that's going to be awesome going forward. Again, if you want a free digital download of Plasticity Volume 1, take a look at the link tree in Yo-Yo Dyne's bio. Also, if you want a printed version and read it like a real human would, DM him. It sounds like there's going to be another run that may be made of those. So
yeah, I just haven't had the chance to do it, but I think I've sold over 100 copies.
Wow, that's great, man.
Yeah, just over. Because I did 4 runs of 25, and I have one print copy, but it's like the one I want for me, for my own.
Nice.
But also you download it and print it yourself if you want.
Yeah.
Was it Hacking Collectibles in the UK did that? He was like, "Hey, look, I bootlegged your zine." I was like, "Perfect, exactly what I wanted."
Oh man.
I think the next issue probably won't be out until 2025. It's going to be reformatted to square bound, so it'll sit on a bookshelf nicely as an edition rather than as a zine.
Sure.
I had a chat with Dove about that, and I think he gave some pretty sage-like advice there, and I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then eventually, once the dissertation is done, try to figure out a way to make that more accessible.
Right.
Whatever that looks like. Yeah.
Whatever that looks like, right?
Yeah.
Dude, we are at about an hour and 10 minutes, man. Is there anything else you want to get out there before we move on?
What do I have going on? The Clutter and Action show is this weekend.
Yes.
If you got the email blast, you got a tease of my piece for it. So I'm not going to post the full photos until Saturday, but I made a Godzilla versus Kong miniature rack toy playset that comes with a tiny aircraft carrier that they can both stand on, like in the Godzilla Kong movie. And it's all made from bootleg toys, like the whole thing. Everything is a resin copy of a bootleg toy. And then I don't really have much else going on other than I'm doing the Mint on Card show.
Nice.
TDB and Sam is curating that. He invited me back. So I'm trying to figure out what to do for that. And that's kind of it. You know, just follow me on Instagram and you will see my compulsive thrift store adventuring. The problem is that there's not a problem. But when I'm staying in Toronto at my partner's house, our studio is in her neighborhood, and it's like an 8-minute walk, and at the 4-minute mark, there's a Value Village on the walk. So every day, if I'm going to the studio, I inevitably take a detour and just take a look. But yeah, you know, follow me, and I do actually have a drop of an edition of 10 new pieces coming. I'm gonna say sometime in July. I've been slow burning a lot of stuff. I made a monster toy that I cast an edition of 10 in resin that I'm learning how to airbrush instead of hand painting. I mean, there'll be brush detail, but so I'm airbrushing those to give them like a bit of a different flavor. And so I'm practicing my airbrushing on a bunch of cheap, like dollar store dinosaurs right now.
Nice,
because I want to be able to figure that out. And then I've got another couple of zines that I'm gonna put up in my shop. One of which I have a copy right here. I just had these printed. One of them is a catalog from a bunch of Motu mashups. I did a Pokemon that's done like an old Kenner catalog. That's like toy photos of like really kind of weird, dramatic photos of like those. And then I found this, the first issue of Toy Fair back in the 90s came with an ash can, you know, a commercially made zine for custom toy makers called Chop Shop. And so I scanned it and I did reprints of it. So I'm going to throw those up in my store. It's super fun. There's nothing in here that everybody who's watching probably doesn't already know, but it's like a historical artifact. Is like, I'm interested in that kind of stuff, so I just decided to like reprint it. And yeah, I don't know, whatever weird thing I'm noodling around with, like that Burger King mashup, that'll go up at some point. Like, I have some playset ideas. I literally have like a sketchbook that is a list of like projects that I want to make. That is quite extensive. I may never get to all of them, but I will just keep chipping away at it.
It's material there for. I mean, gosh, dude, doesn't sound like you're going to be stopping anytime soon, so that's cool.
Oh no, no, you can't see my desk right now, dude. But there is literally like 5 custom Motu figures, a bunch of resin cast stuff, a few 3D prints, paint, like, and all of that stuff just sitting on the desk. Whenever I'm writing, if I get stuck, I just stop and pick up a paintbrush, think, and then go back to writing. So, but yeah, I've been playing around with some silly ideas. I have this patron who just loves those Pokemon He-Man mashups so much that every couple of months he's like, what about doing one of this Pokemon? And I'm like, all right. So I've been working on a couple of those, and then I got inspired to make a few more of my own. Like I just finished this one. I'm probably going to drop this one soon too. I took Too Bad and then Wheezing because he's the 2-headed one.
Right.
And still the action feature is still in place. Just, you know, have fun with this. Like, if you're taking this like seriously and you're stressing yourself out, I mean, I understand all makers go through that, but like, we do this because we love it and it's satisfying and fulfilling for us, right? There is nothing more satisfying than like clear coating a toy and like having a material object that you made in front of you. Like, nothing. You know, some people might argue there are other things more fulfilling, but for me, that is just that gratification, just knowing that there was something that wasn't in the world that was in my head and now it's in the world as like a physical object that you can hold. That's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. And I think that's what's cool is that I think that's what brought a lot of us together um, in this community is a couple things exactly that you said, man. A lot of people wanted to get it away from something else, whether it be take your mind off of something, get away from all the BS that's going on in the world, and just come over here and find people that are maybe they're not into the exact same thing that you are, but they're into the scene, and that's cool, man. The scene, like you said, dude, that umbrella is so big, man. And I think the longer that we think about it, you take a look at Lab Monkey Nine's recent shows, and you see what kinds of mediums are in there, and really start to realize, he made that one chart that has he kind of dissected everything and kind of made like the steps of what this community is. And then you start to really realize how many people fall under that umbrella, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. I think it's growing. I think it's super fun.
Yeah. And I think that like you go to Designer Con and the common thread is that everybody there makes shit. And not everybody, right? Because there's like people who are just buying or whatever, but everybody who is a vendor is making stuff, and it is a vast, diverse spectrum of work.
Yeah.
And then you have all the people who appreciate that. I think that I think that's one of the reasons I love Designer Con so much is just the variation and diversity of voices that you see.
Yeah.
And, I think that like for making I find making to be one, I've been explicit about, incredibly therapeutic, and two, it's meditating by doing, right?
Sure.
It's like finding a little space for yourself. And in a world that is so fucking noisy, finding a little space for yourself however you can is like, that's why I will be doing this, until I can't.
And that right there alone, man, I think that kind of transcends across everything. I mean, even if you're not making stuff and you're collecting stuff, like organizing and reorganizing and grouping and degrouping, sometimes that stuff alone right there is extremely therapeutic,
Well, and it's a creative act in its own right?
Sure.
Like your display is a creative act and a mode of play when you're like, I'm going to put this guy here because he speaks to this guy, right? You're doing that kind of like relational work there that is just like modes of adult play with objects that look like objects from childhood that they're not, but they resemble them, and that's okay. Everybody has a passion for something, and it engenders some kind of creative mode, even if and I don't like using this term, and even if you're quote just a collector, you're still engaging in a practice like that.
Sure.
Creative practice. There's lots of academic literature about collecting culture and like play as display as a mode of play.
Sure.
Right. And I think that that's also true. So
yeah,
I've got it all just crammed in here.
You know what, man? And like I said, dude, it's the stuff that I really enjoy talking about that we just never really talk about, man. But I think once you start to talk about it, almost everybody that's here, even in the chat, can probably relate to it in some shape or form. And it's cool, man. These kinds of talks are really engaging. I think it's something that everybody can touch on and says, yes, I've experienced that. Yes, I've felt that. Yes, I've moved my collection around. And it's just, I think it's solid to see people keep showing up and just to kind of know that it's going to keep on going on and on until, who knows when. But it feels like it's always going to be there. I think the world is just a content machine on its own. People kind of doing their own riffs on certain things, movies, shows, personalities, stuff like that. I think that really lends a lot to just kind of like an unlimited landscape of content. It's like, how can you possibly run out of content? Even if you're not doing something on nostalgia wise, right? Like maybe it doesn't have to do anything with nostalgia when you were a kid at all. Maybe it's something brand new that you're doing a riff on that also fits under that umbrella.
Well, all the work that we do because of the conversation with pop culture is derivative work. And most of the time, people use derivative as like a pejorative, right? Like nose in the air. Oh, that's derivative.
Sure.
Every fucking thing that we experience is derivative. That's where we are in culture. That's where we are. And that's great. And that's okay. Right. It's about that dialogue and engaging in that dialogue with the larger culture. And I think that I love seeing work that, is kind of like more on the original side. But even work that's more on the original side, it's still referring to other things. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. But for me, I like to really kind of like get in and I'm very much, people who know my work would know that I love a good mashup. I think that that's like a cultural form of our time. And, that was what I was saying way earlier about the designer vinyl scene too. It's throw a stone at like a big con like Decon and you'll find something that's appropriating Mickey Mouse in the designer vinyl scene.
Yeah.
Right. Some of it's licensed, most of it is not. Just that's what I love about all of this is that this thing that I say to my students, and not to put like a teacher hat on, but culture inevitably will respond to culture. And that's how these things keep moving forward. Right. And the beautiful thing about our community is that there are people who I see popping up in my suggestions now all the time who are relatively new. And it's bring them in.
Yeah.
Add that plurality of voices, right? Like a rising tide really does lift all ships. There's no reason.
For sure, man. For sure. I touched on that a little bit last week, or maybe it was the week before, but just kind of taking the, kind of unspoken competition out of it and saying we all need everybody's shows to do well, rising tide. Yeah, exactly, man.
I guess, there are sort of late capital, neoliberal sort of philosophies of competition, but none of us are corporations.
Right.
None of us, maybe some people are in this to sort of generate additional revenue in their lives, and that's great. But yeah, I don't view any of this as competitive. My entire Instagram feed extends well beyond this community to other people who are doing other things with toys, because it's about the media. It's the medium that I'm interested in.
Right.
I just found this person who has 100,000 followers or something who does custom Polly Pocket stuff.
Oh wow!
And it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable work. Or the people who do long Furby, the long Furby, just weird shit made with toys, right? I don't see the point. I want everyone to do well, and that's always sort of been at the heart of like I said, any of the indie communities I've been a part of. The people who are the most enthusiastic about it are both makers and fans of the medium.
Yeah.
Right? I'm off to Toronto. I'd start teaching my summer class this week, but I'm off to Toronto early because the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, which is a big indie comics and it sort of cartooning festival, is on this weekend, and I want to go and support that work.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. On that note, dude, thank you for being here, man. That was
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your show and what you do very much. Again, right, discourse being important, these conversations being an important part of what we do. There's an interesting conversation about toy collecting books. Now you're speaking my language.
Right.
I have a huge, what do they call them, the barrister shelves, the lawyer shelves with the glass, and it's stacked 3 high, and it's all toy and collecting guides.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but far, far away, I agree with Jazz Wizard. Jacob's book about Polish bootlegs is an incredible book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, if you don't have that, go get it. Anyway, sorry, I ramble.
No, all good, man. Thanks for your time, man. You're an absolute champion. If
Oh,
you
thank you,
are
dude.
following Yo-Yo Dyne, do so. Get on his Instagram page, hit the link tree, and just take a look around. There's tons of good stuff on there, including that plasticity zine. Like I said, 40 plus pages, some really good stuff. Scott with a K, thank you again, my man. Appreciate you, dude.
No problem, man. Thank you so much.
Right on. Take it easy.
You too.
Boom. Yo-Yo Dyne Toys, man, that was a great interview. Like I said, that's some stuff that we don't usually talk about, that we just don't get very in depth in. But if you take a look at some of his other, um, if you take a look at some of his other work, and just kind of start doing some research, listen to some interviews that he's had. There is a lot to that guy, and it's all extremely interesting. It's all very important stuff. I think it's relevant for not only what's going on right now, but what kind of what got us up to this point, and then where we're going. Man, it's always interesting to see people's take on kind of what this is, right? Um, that being said, oh, said it. Wasn't going to say it today, said it anyways. Let's get into some pieces to look at. How about that? Let's see here. What are we going to do first? Let's do, oh man, how about this one? How about that damn JDO? God dog it, man. Take a look at these things. There was only, I think, 5 or 6 of these. These are plague troopers. So sick. I mean, there's just articulation all over the place. I would say the scale on this is probably around the 4-inch mark. Um, I believe these were like 30 bucks, and I think there may be one left in the shop there. But dude, just incredible work. It's a softer, flexible resin, but still very, very sturdy. Really, really sick piece right there. Really sick. Yeah, JDO, Deadbird Toys. Um, I mean, he's a Northern California guy like myself, and his work is just incredible, man. I mean, you go all the way back to the Bone Ghosts and everything in between. Uh, but the 3.75s, he did some 3.75 Bone Ghosts, and then he has come out with a couple other figures like this. But this one is just badass. I really love it. It's chunky. It's kind of heavy. Really, really sturdy. Sick. Just a super, super nice piece. Bam. Um, Next, I'm going to show Yuck and Buck. Yuck and Buck's pieces, there's actually 2 here. One of them is from Robot Resurrection, and there is the card for this one. Really, really cool there. This is the EC Robo. This is the gilded version. So there is magnetic articulation in the head there. Bam. And in the arms. Bam. Awesome looking piece. Really nice static legs. Again, there's the header for that. Very nice. Nice gold, lots of sparkle in there. Yeah, it's a nice one. Jazz, I agree, man. Porpoise, take it easy, my man. I'm sure we'll be discussing the latest in hat wear very soon. Another one from Yuckamuck. There was only 2 of these. And this one, it's kind of hard to see the blue in here, but if you put it up into the light, it's almost a translucent blue, which is really cool. This is a Jupiterian. Now, he said there was only 2 of these. He said they didn't come out quite like he wanted them to. I think they're freaking great. Really, really nice. Jupiterian from Yuckamuck. Some really good paint on there. Check that out. It's got that real kind of bootleggy look and feel, and that's a good thing in my opinion. But it's awesome. Love that one. 3.75 scale, static all around on this guy. Bam. Oh yeah. Yeah, the blue and silver is really sick. Isn't that funny? I mean, I don't want to say it's funny, man, but I mean, you guys as makers, I'm sure you experience that all the time where you have an idea, next thing you know, you see somebody come out with it. Um, I've had that happen to me, not for pieces, but just ideas for the show. And next thing you know, somebody else is doing it, and you're just like, daggone it, man, I should have moved on that a little bit faster. But I'm sure you guys go through that all the time, whether it's somebody just using a piece or a whole figure or an idea. Um, that's a question that I should probably start asking artists. How frustrating is it when you have a piece planned like that, um, and then somebody ends up doing the same thing or using something of yours? What do you do? Do you just put it on hold, oh, her toys? What's up, dog? Her or I mean, what do you do? Do you just put it on hold, or do you, um, move forward? Toys on tap. What's up, dude? Next one that we got, this guy right here. Whew. This dude, this is probably one of the coolest ones I've got in a while. I mean, they're all cool, but this one right here from Ordinary Toys, um, yowza. I mean, I think there was a run of, oh man, maybe five, 4 or 5. Bizarrior is what this guy is. Um, articulated arms. Love the soft goods on there, man. Really, really cool. This is 5.5 scale and translucent red. This one is called Red Rage, is what this one was listed under. Super, super cool. There is a magnetic articulation on the head. Awesome. Such a sick piece. These were all one-offs. There's, like I said, there was 4 or 5. Every one of them was extremely different. There was an all glow version. There was like a blue or purple sparkle version. Really, really cool. Um, God, dude, it is just so good. Really nice. Um, God, nice paint work on there too. Check that out. Sick. Really sick piece. Some soft goods on the cape there, or I'm sorry, on the vest. It's like a little leather vest. And then you got this the fur piece on the back. Dope. Dope. Also, that came with the Ordinary Toys package. There's a little overpour skull. Nicely done. Love those overpours and the randomness that you get in there. I just realized I don't have my Cool Cat piece in front of me. So let me grab that real quick. Okay, sorry about that. Um, Cool Cat Toys, man. I don't know if you guys saw these. If you missed out on them, this was a good one, man. This one, I don't think we had any idea that this was coming out. The next thing you know, bam, um, there was a round of these that dropped, and they are freaking awesome. Captain Kill Devil on this one. There was a couple different versions. God damn, that's good. Glios, of course. This one does have a resin cape with it, and I think if I remember correctly, the capes are what were a little bit different on each one. Um, but this one, I'm going to pop this cape on real quick. Man, God, these are good. Um, Hand sculpted. If you don't have any of Cool Cat Toys stuff, you know that it's all hand sculpted. There's glios, there's articulation all over this thing. But man, this is such a beauty. Here's the freaking sword with it. Yeah, great looking piece, Grant. Um, I'm positive that these sold out. I don't know if there's going to be some more or not, like I said, but what a great looking piece, man. Captain Kill Devil. God dang, that's good. This one, I believe, has some sort of glow or UV with it, if I remember seeing the picture correctly. If not, it's still dope. What a great freaking piece, man. This is probably 3.75 scale. Um, Hand sculpted stuff there. Glios articulation. Vinyl Cape 2. Yes, I do have that, Grant. 1 second here, buddy. Yes, vinyl cape. Sorry, dude. It was actually stuck to the sticky note that you put in there for me, which I will respond to uh, in the next few days. But referring to your sticky note, yes. Um, there's the vinyl cape and then the resin cape. I think that's what the difference was. Some didn't come with the vinyl cape. I don't have this on. I should because I'm sure it looks amazing, but super cool. Cool Cat Toy Co. guaranteed quality toys since 2019. Yes, I'll take that. Bam. Captain Kill Devil. God damn, that's a good one. Pink and black. Awesome work, man. It did come with an extra head as well. Very cool. God, since 2019. Grant was 19 years old in 2019. Holy smokes, dude. Bam. There it is. Captain Kill Devil. Last but not least on the list, a couple pieces from Jimmy Folklore. The first one is a Robot Resurrection piece. Nice box. "100 Tour, Robot Resurrection. One of one." Bam. And here's this piece. Whoo, doggy, look at that. Articulates in the head there. And there is a lot going on there as far as what pieces were used. I actually took a screenshot of what it was, so I wouldn't screw it up. So let's see. All right, so we got a beater floppy C3PO with no hands, broken R2D2 legs, R2 trunk and head miscast resin, glow in the dark confetti made from old cardback scraps. I'll repeat that. Glow in the dark confetti made from old cardback scraps. All right. Very bottom of the bottle of resin that just needed to get used up. It wasn't enough to make a full figure. Old chunky red paint that was drying up but worked well as blood and really pops under a black light. Awesome. I have to do that. And that's kind of what it was. I mean, that was Jimmy Folklore's take on Resurrection, because he basically resurrected all these broken pieces. And what I love about it, man, is he did it kind of in like a Aki the Ramba style as far as kit bashing everything together. Robot Resurrection um, was Aki the Rambas's show, and this is freaking wild, man. This is a great piece. I like that all these pieces are resurrected. Not only that, but the resin and the paint as well. Get out of town. Who are you, freaking Jimmy? Awesome piece, man. Right on, Ace. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's awesome, Bliss. It really is cool, man. Yeah, good one. Here's another one that I'm going to show from Jimmy Folklore. Uh, this one, Jimmy, you tell me, man. Jimmy, can I show the burger? You let me know, man. I didn't know if you wanted me to show that or not. I will. But if you don't want me to show it, I won't show it. You let me know. Here's a Folklore sticker. Very nice. Bam. Okay, awesome. I can show it. So check this out. I didn't know that this was from Jimmy Folklore. I thought he just threw it in as an extra for something. But this is freaking wild that he's working on. Check this out. Burger balls. Okay. The grossest balls in town. Gross food, great taste. Burger balls. All right. Talk about packaging. Check that out. All right. Open them up. He does open up just like a burger. And check this out, man. So look at that. It looks like a burger, yeah? Mad ball for the bun. All right. Magnetic, which holds the fixings, if you will. That's the cheese. There's little jokes on the back. How about that, man? That's the cheese. You got the tomato. Guys, look at that. The lettuce. Western Goods, what's up, my dog? More cheese. Dude, this is great, man. I think this is funny because this is this looks like a meat patty, but it also has like kind of a green tint to it, which is funny. The cheese, tomato, etc., are all kiss cut. Yes, nice, very cool. Yeah, these are stickers. You can see what says peel here on these, but very cool. You put them all together. Bam. And there you have it. Sticks together. Burger, magnetic articulated on both sides. That's a crazy idea, Jimmy. The packaging is stellar, man. Burger balls from Jimmy Folklore. Very cool. Sick. Nice little packaging, too. Crazy good packaging. Printed in flesh with with organic sauce. So there you go. Very cool. Yeah, great one, man. Last piece of the night before we move on to the giveaway. Jimmy Folklore, this freaking guy. There's a little bit of a story with this one. Last year during the GI Joe show. Oh, nice. Okay, so Folklore says that Ian did the burger box, same guy that helps me with the fancy cards. So if you remember in that second version of the Broids that came out, which I think there may be some at DKE still, but that card, it was like the die cut of the card, right? It was the droid like die cut card back, which was super sick. Anyways, he's the one who did the packaging for that. So going back to this piece now. This piece is something that Jimmy Folklore had. I take that back. The card was something that he had in last year's GI Joe show. Do you guys remember these card backs right here? So sick, right? Awesome. Um, I mean, this is probably the best backer that I've seen in a long, long time. I had told Jimmy that I wanted one of those backers, um, and he actually ended up putting a piece with it. And for the piece part, for it to make any sense to anybody, um, I've talked about it a million times on the show, but for anybody who doesn't know, I just have to explain this one more time. So you explain it's because to explain the piece and why it means so much to me. When I was growing up, my mom, for the first part of my life, was a single parent, and she was a preschool teacher. My mom was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. Grew up in the '60s. Um, has taught all her life. She's retired recently, but um, she lives in Oklahoma, so and I live in California, so we don't see each other as much as either one of us would like, I would think. But um, when I was a kid, GI Joes were just a no-no, right? It was anti-war, anti-gun, anti-violence, anything like that, right? So I watched, a lot of PBS growing up, to be honest. Some cartoons, most that had guns or something like that weren't allowed. Action figures with guns were not allowed. Um, and if I did get them, she would just take the guns away. So even the green army men, and this is where this piece comes in, the green army men that I would get before my mom and my stepdad got married, we were broke as shit, man. We were living in a duplex in Redwood City, um, and it was rough, man. I mean, my mom was a single parent, and she was a preschool teacher. I know what preschool teachers make roughly now, and it's a damn shame, honestly. But back then, in the early '80s, I'm sure it was the same, right? So. Um, Sometimes the toys that I would get would be the little green army men just because you could kind of get them in abundance for really, really cheap. Um, the problem is that those toys all had something to do with war. They all had a gun, or they all had a grenade that they were throwing, something like that, right? So basically, what my mom would do would be when I get those toys, she would cut the guns out, and you would cut or she would cut the grenades out of their hands. And so what you ended up with was a bunch of green plastic army men just doing basically poses with no weapons, right? So you had a guy like this with no gun. You had a guy like this throwing a grenade with no hand. And I've told that story on the show a couple times. I think it came up last year during the GI Joe show because I don't know shit about GI Joes. I'll be honest with you. This year, I'm heavily leaning on some experts to come in and help me out with that. But I love toys in general. Um, but when it comes to GI Joes, I just have no clue. I know like two or three characters, so on and so on, right? So Jimmy comes out. I love this card, right? So Jimmy comes out with this, and this is the figure that he makes in here, man. Look at that. It's a guy getting ready to throw a grenade, but he's got no grenade in his hand, just like my mom would have done it. It's amazing, man. And then on the back, Folklore Industries, Peace to the J. Man, I'll tell you what, man. I took this out of the package, and um, thanks, man. That one means a lot to me, Jimmy. Thank you, dude. Um, it's crazy, man. It's another story. Talking about nostalgia, like I did with Yo-Yo Dyne. I think that's something that really, uh, you know, that just really hits home with a lot of people in so many ways. Um, that's another one. That's a great one. Instantly shoots up to probably my favorite piece that I have. Right up there with green plastic tunnels and the pieces that he's made. I've covered those. I've covered those millions of times, but it means a lot to me. The fact that he remembered that and made a figure out of it. It's amazing, dude. Um, yeah, you're the man, Jimmy. Let's get to this. Let's get to this giveaway. Um, Follow all those people that I got toys from, man. Jimmy Folklore, Yo-Yo Dyne, Ordinary Toys, Cool Cat, that damn JDO, Yuckamuck, all outstanding toy makers, man. Um, yeah, give them all a follow. Let's see, what are we playing for tonight? Boom. The girlfriend that went to another high school. That's just unfortunate, right? There she is at a different school. This is done by the one and only Sir Collect-a-Lot. What a great freaking piece this is. Bam, comes with the Sir Collect-a-Lot sticker. If you look on the back, it says, scan here to see more of my dumb ideas come to life. Super cool. So this will be going out to somebody. Let's take a look and see what we got up to on the wheel this week. I'm not sure how much we got up to. Let's take a look. Ba-ba-ba. It wasn't very many, I'll tell you that. If you entered the giveaway this week, you got a darn good shot of winning that. It is, let's see here. Oh, Sarah Booz, I'll let you in right now. Let's see. So here's the other thing that's kind of lame with Instagram today. When you put the newest comment first, it was not doing that for me. It was putting the comments um, way down at the bottom for some reason. So let me see what number you get. Sarah Booz. Ba, 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 ba. Sorry, people. I just want to make sure that everybody gets the correct number. Oh, Lynn's, you're 8. Lynn's wants to pay it forward. Barrio Boba, you're number 9. Hobo Toys, you're 10. Bootleg Toy Co. You're going to be 11. Recycle Galaxy, you're 12. Glass House Knife Company, wrong artist, my dude. That's all right. I think you might just read that one wrong. Jimmy Folklore, you're going to be 13. And Sarah Booz, you will be 14. All right. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, I don't know what was going on with the giveaway this week. But that being said, let's take a look at the wheel and see what we can get going here. All right. It's going to be 13. All right, here we go. Spinning the wheel. Number 9, I think that's Barrio Boba. Yes, look at that. Barrio Boba. Nice win. There you go, man. Barrio Boba won something recently. I can't remember what it was. But he did win something recently. That's very, very cool. Oh man, that'll do it for the show tonight, man. Look at that, 1 hour on the dot. Next week, holy smokes, we're gonna try to do this GI Joe show again. How about that? Oh, okay. Retrozone, all good, man. Yeah, and that's cool, man. If you guys, if it's not something that you're interested in for whatever reason, yeah, just don't jump in the giveaway. Sir Collect a Lot though, his figures are freaking top notch, off the chain. If you missed that interview for any reason, it goes back just I don't know a few weeks now. That was a really good one as well. Also, take a look at his work; it's super awesome. Um, Including the Pringles. Somebody had commented on the Pringles work. Um, oh yeah, absolutely, Dre. Thanks for coming in, man. Um, let's see. So next week, GI Joe show. We have some experts coming in to help out with that one. That's going to be a really fun show. There's like 40 something artists in that one, and it's just going to be a recap show. So we do have some really cool giveaways for next week that are GI Joe related, if you can believe that. Um, and it'll be a fun time, man. I got Jazz Wizard coming in. I got Death and Strawberries coming in. I got some other experts coming in to kind of give us their take on GI Joe, maybe give us a little bit of GI Joe history. So that'll be fun next week. That'll do it for episode 104. Thanks for coming in tonight, and I will see you all next week. Have a safe weekend. Oh, here's something real quick. If everybody's still there, God dang it, I forgot to say this earlier. I'll probably do a post about this too. But we were really talking about uh, thanks, Dre. We were talking about Super 7 earlier uh, um, with Yo-Yo Dyne with Scott. And I got a thing from Super 7 a while ago, and I decided just to fill it out and figure, what the hell. It was to be a Super 7 official affiliate. I don't know if anybody else has seen those before. I'm sure they send them out to a lot of people, but I did it. And you give them links to your page and stuff, and they kind of see what you're about. And basically, what you can do is you can just sell Super 7 figures, and you get a very, very small portion of those sales. What I thought would be very cool is to do it under Toys Alive, and then any proceeds made from that, which are really, it's like less than 10% on a figure. Figures are about $20. So how much are you really making? It's pennies. But I think if there's any, sort of amount with them, you can add up and we'll put it right back into the show. So Toys Alive is an official Super 7 affiliate. I will put a link to that in the bio at some point. But if you're interested in buying Super 7 figures, if you buy from that site, a portion of those does go back to the show, and we'll end up paying for things like shipping, giveaways, and probably some of this swag that's going to end up in the Toys Alive store here pretty soon. Also, speaking of the Toys Alive store, keep an eye out. I'm not saying what's going to be in there or who's it's going to be from. Keep an eye out. By the end of the month, there may be something else in there. I will let everybody know. Retrozone Neon. That's what I'm talking about, man. It's super easy. It's crazy. It's the same price. You know what I mean? I kind of tried to work it out in my head, but it's the same price that you would pay at Super 7, either in store or online. It's like $20 a figure, right? For basically a carded one. But anyways, a little bit of anything that we can get going back into the show would be very, very cool. And that looks like a good way to do it. Not only to support Super 7, but to support the show. And if it's something buying anyways, you're really, all you're doing is clicking on a different link. So anyways, that will do it for the show this week. GI Joe's show next week. Watch out for some posts over the weekend. Thank you, everybody, for coming in tonight. Episode 104 in the books. Have a great weekend.